Welcome to the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for being here. We're going to get into a little bit of Texans and Astros news in just a second, but I want to start with the NBA Finals since we're doing this, a day or so ahead of the NBA Finals. We got the Thunder-Pacers matchup. I can't even remember. Now it's been long enough. I can't even remember it the last time we reported that it was a for sure thing that it was going to be Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder, but I'm pretty sure at that point the Pacers had 3 wins. They were up 3-1 on the Knicks. I know they ended up forcing the game 6, but the Pacers handled business. The Thunder were resting and were ready for them, and now we're just a day ahead of the matchup. And so I've had enough time to think about it, had enough time to reflect on the postseason and the regular season and what these teams represent, what they look like. And there's so many fascinating angles to this, like the whole smallest combined market of finals or whatever exactly it is. Oklahoma City and Indiana are both mid-market teams, and that's a big talking point of how are these markets going to carry such a large event, such a large scale type of event for the NBA? Is it an issue that it's Oklahoma City and Indiana and there isn't a New York or an LA or, one of these sort of marquee top markets in it? And I got to be honest, man, I don't really give a damn about none of that. And I'm not really sure exactly how much that part of it matters, especially given just the state of media and the fact that we're all connected through the internet now anyway. So I'm not here for the whole market size story angle of it as much as I am for the basketball part. And I think basketball wise, it's hard to argue against this matchup in terms of its appeal and the anticipation that I think real basketball fans, and even if you're a casual fan that's been watching the playoffs, let's say you don't really get into the NBA until around this part of the year, around this time of the year, you've got to know by now how great of a matchup this is. This is strength on strength. This is strength on strength, and I'm fascinated by that with Oklahoma City's pretty much all-time historic type of defense that they have. They have one of the better defenses that I think that we've ever seen, certainly that we've seen in modern history, in the modern NBA. And then on the Pacers side, speaking to strength on strength, they are not only one of the better offenses that we have in all of the NBA and certainly in these playoffs, especially the way that they've been playing. They've been shooting the three, even over their own ability, it seems like. Like if you look around, like guys like Pascal Siakam and Aaron Naismith, like guys like that are really kind of outperforming what their normal expectation is from shooting from three. And so there is a question of how long can they keep that up? Is that something that they're going to be able to continue, especially against the Oklahoma City Thunder that is not only just an all-time great defensive team, but they are specifically elite at defending the three. Now, there is some debate amongst the NBA community about how much to attribute three-point defense or opponent's three-point percentage to your actual defense, like a matter of both luck or either luck and skill or luck or skill. But it seems like the Thunder have a little bit of both going for them. And they do a really good job of defending and sort of forcing the issue. Now, the Pacers, not only do they shoot the three well, but true to their name, and I don't mean to be corny about this, but it is just the fact of the matter, they play at a pace that is true to the brand. You don't play for the Pacers. You can't play for the Pacers if you don't run, if you don't get after it. And I'm not just talking about off of a miss. I'm talking about catching the ball out of the net. You grew up learning about basketball. They'll tell you it's hard to get up and run when you're picking the ball up out of the net and you're allowing the defense to get set, and it's 5-on-5, and the numbers aren't in your favor, right? You don't get to get the fast break chances, and you don't get to get the numbers advantages and all of that. But the Pacers don't really seem to give a damn about that. Like, they're like, make, miss, I don't care. Tyrese Halliburton is getting the ball. We're pushing it, and Tyrese Halliburton is going to find you. And once he finds you, you can give up the ball if you want to, but the ball might find you again because they run and pass. So they move and pass basically more than anybody in the NBA. There's that graphic that's running around on social media right now that kind of does a graph of both player movement and ball movement. And when it comes to both, the Pacers appear to be easily far and away the number one team. Easily far and away the number one team, both in ball movement and player movement. Now, it is worth noting, since this is primarily a Houston podcast, and I'm a Houston media member who is a Rockets fan before I was media and covers the Rockets now. Like, you look at that graphic, y'all go check it out. The Rockets are on the other side of the ledger. I would say the wrong side of the ledger, and it's something that we talked about with them. They don't move the ball enough, and their players don't move nearly enough, and according to this graphic, less than anybody else. So to me, it's very clear that the Rockets need, if not to just flat out become the Pacers, they need to figure out a way to do more Pacer things than Rocket things on the offensive end of the floor, and they would be in a lot better shape, especially considering the youth and athleticism that's on that team. But I digress, because this here is not specifically about the Rockets. It's about the NBA Finals participants, and I cannot wait to watch these styles collide. That is the fascinating part. It's also really cool to see a matchup where the marquee players are point guards who can completely take over the game in different ways. Talking about the MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and obviously Tyrese Halliburton, who I just mentioned. Like, Shai is, the leading scorer, 30-plus points per game, and we already know the free throw merchant kind of mantra or tag that's been put on him. But, for all of the ways that is kind of talked about as a pejorative, I don't think we're doing a good enough job of just pointing out how masterful all of that is. Like, he's not just foul hunting. And to be clear, he is hunting these fouls. He is doing a little bit of what I think Bomani Jones coined as a term of insurance fraud. And I think that was more so associated with James Harden back in the day. But, where you're kind of looking more so for a foul than a shot. And I know that can be maddening and can be frustrating for a lot of basketball purists. But just like James Harden was back in the day, and still does to a certain degree, all NBA type of guy, and it just like he used to do, SGA is also literally drawing these fouls. Like, it's not just the hunting, it's not just flopping, but he has figured out a way not just to pick his spots, be able to pick his spots to shoot the ball anywhere he wants to on the floor, but also how to leverage how you defend him against you and figure out ways to get to the free throw line. He obviously is somebody that can take over a game. He's the damn MVP. And Tyrese Halliburton does the same thing, just in a much, much different way. Like, he's someone that can take over a game without, say, scoring 20. Whereas with Shai, you're more likely than not going to get a 30-burger when he's at his best. So obviously Tyrese Halliburton is capable of taking over a game from a scoring standpoint and can score 30 and can hit big shots. We've seen that time and time again in the playoffs. But he does not need to do that because of how they've built this team, what the identity of the team is, and how closely tied that is to his ability to break down a defense, to like the jump passes. It's so antithetical. I think this is the cool part, how the Pacers in a lot of ways are so antithetical to what our understanding of basketball is supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like. Like, I don't think you're supposed to improve your three-point shooting to the degree that they have for certain players. I don't think you're supposed to be able to run fast breaks off of made baskets to the degree that they're able to do it. And I don't think your point guard is advised to be out here doing a bunch of jump passes, jumping in the air and passing the ball, because it's one of the things they tell you. When you leave your feet, you better be shooting the ball because you're in trouble if you leave your feet and you're trying to pass it all the time. Not this guy. Not this guy. He is putting some of these conventional basketball ideas and flipping them on their head. So I can appreciate that when you defy conventional wisdom, when you go up against the grain. And I think the Pacers are a great example of that. So I can't wait to see this matchup. I think that the depth of the teams is another thing. The Thunder probably have more quality depth, but the Pacers' depth is so much closely tied to just what it is that they do. And I think that's just going to be a fascinating matchup of strength on strength. So, look, I can't wait to watch this one. I've got the Thunder, who earlier on this podcast in an earlier episode, I called them the surest thing left. And I want to say this was the conference semifinals at this point when I was calling them the surest thing left. Now, sure enough, they end up going the distance in a series, and it didn't look like it took them the longest to get to the conference finals out of all the conference finalists. And so by the end of that series, or of that round, I should say, they looked like anything but the surest thing, the least surest thing, since it took them the longest to get there. But I think now we've gotten to a place where that remains true. And I can say that once again with a level of confidence. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they've been the surest thing in this postseason, and they remain the surest thing out of this matchup. But I got to be careful here. I'm picking the Thunder in 6, but I cannot ignore, and I've been touching on this quite a bit, but I cannot ignore, and none of us can, but especially if you've been watching these playoffs, cannot ignore this walk them down mentality and this walk them down ability that the Pacers clearly have. Like, it does not matter if it seems like they're outmatched. It does not matter if the other team has the home court advantage. This is a team that, for whatever reason, seems to play better on the road a lot of times than they do at home. This is a team that can get down by double digits, 20, however many it is. And if there's enough time, you cannot count the Pacers out, no matter how badly it appears that they're getting blown out, no matter how badly it appears that they are outmatched. They can turn it on because they for one thing, they do defend, but also they just play at a pace that is just stressful and really difficult to deal with. Ask the Bucks about this, and they will tell you. Ask the Cleveland Cavaliers, who I'm sure had pretty high hopes after being a 1 seed, and they will tell you. Ask the Knicks after they were able to walk down the Boston Celtics, who I think were a lot of people's favorite in the Eastern Conference to make the finals and repeat, of course, before the Jason Tatum injury. But even before the Jason Tatum injury, the Knicks were walking down the Celtics and did it in the first 2 games of that series, a big reason why they won it. So, yeah, and then they get to the Pacers and they're like, we thought we faced the worst of it already. We thought we already have been through the ringer. We thought we already ran through that gauntlet of the Eastern Conference juggernaut. And here it is, it's the Pacers that are actually the toughest team to deal with. And, the Knicks found that out firsthand. It'll be interesting to see how much that translates to the series with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if they're able to, defy the odds, go up against all odds and actually do the thing that a team that plays this way, you don't traditionally think of them as a team that can do this. So I'm looking at this as a 6-game series in the favor of the Oklahoma City Thunder. But there is something about this Pacers team that is 100% worth celebrating, 100% worth remembering. And this is another point that I've made on a previous podcast. Like, I am rooting for the Pacers just because of how unique their story is and how unique of a run that they've had. You know, we talked about how they had 3 comebacks from down 7 points or more with under a minute or something to that effect. I don't know. I can't remember if that's the exact stat, but it's something like that. Down 7 points or more under, it might even be 9, but let's just go with 7 points or more down with less than a minute to go, and then they win the game. Normally at that point, you kind of give up on the game, and it becomes a little bit of a free throw shooting contest. If you can just knock down probably half of them and play a little bit of defense, you probably should secure that win. But no lead is safe. You know, no lead is safe against the Indiana Pacers, and I don't think that's going to be any different for Oklahoma City. I just think that they are, you know, overall the better team. They have the best player. I think that they're, you know, after Tyrese Halliburton, you know, they've got the Thunder have the best player and maybe even the third and fourth best player, depending on, you know, where you rank Siakam on, you know, as compared to Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. You might actually put Siakam over Holmgren, but you know, I just think the top end and even the depth of the team is in favor of the Thunder. And throughout the course of a 7-game series, they're going to be the one that just has the most. But that's the prediction. I am actively rooting against my prediction. You know, you think with your head, you think with your heart. You know, my head is with the Oklahoma City Thunder. My heart is with the Indiana Pacers. It's got nothing to do with my dad being from Indiana. He's not a Pacers fan. We have no connection to the Pacers. It's just a matter of admiring the story, admiring the journey, admiring the way that they've constructed the roster. And then with Rick Carlisle, I just got to give them credit, man. They constructed the roster in this way. They coach it in this way. And then their best player sets the tone and ensures that they play this way. He's out there to reinforce it. I think it's really cool. Y'all check out a really good piece on the Indiana Pacers if you want to read it and you got time before the series starts, or just whenever you get time. I think it's worth your time to check out Rob Mahoney at The Ringer talking about the Pacers. The title of the article, headline of the article, is how the Indiana Pacers spun style into substance, and how they've basically, you know, embodied their style of play. Like they don't change. They don't wiggle for anyone. And they are a real testament to collaboration and team building and just what it's supposed to look like. You know, I think both teams, to a large degree, what it's supposed to look like. I know I dismissed the whole small to mid-market angle earlier, but you know, just that part aside, if you just look at no matter what your market is, or you know how much money, you know, just in terms of how to build a team, how to coach a team, and then how to stay true to what you've built and what you've enforced and reinforcing it. Both of these teams are just excellent examples of that. So I can't wait to get this thing started. I cannot wait to watch it. It's been frustrating that it has taken this long, and I understand why it would. But Thursday, you know, that it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming to go from the weekend to now waiting all the way until Thursday for this matchup. I am ready to go. Also of note that once this finally ends, I can more so fully focus on baseball season and what the Astros got going on. I've talked about them not being as exciting of a team as they have been in the past, but things are starting to heat up a little bit for them. So, and we'll talk about them in just a second, but that's what I'm looking forward to, watching these Thunder, watching these Pacers. And I just think it's a hell of a matchup. It is 100%. I think Pacers Thunder NBA Finals matchup. It is exactly what we need. Exactly what we need. To hell with market size. Focus on basketball. Focus on what the actual entertainment product is. And this is just as entertaining of a series that you could possibly get. Okay. And it's possible that we weren't giving the Pacers enough credit going into the playoffs as a finalist possibility. and is even a team that could win it and a team that could give, any team in the West a run for its money. But we definitely know that now. So I'm excited about it. Can't wait to see it. And we'll talk about it plenty here on the B Block podcast, breaking it all down. But we got to talk about the Texans, OTAs, this CJ Stroud story, his shoulder injury, and him not throwing, and what that's all about, and whether media is overreacting to it. Are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Are we making this out to be a bigger deal than it actually is? What is really a story, especially football wise? Like, we do this thing with football where it's got especially the NFL, where it's got the 24-hour news cycle. They feed the beast. And we always, even if there ain't really nothing to talk about, we always find something to talk about, whether it's worth talking about or not. We find something to talk about when it comes to football and when it comes to the NFL. But I think the relevant and fair question to ask about this is, how big of a deal and how relevant is it that CJ Stroud has some kind of shoulder issue? There's been some hang up on whether to call it an injury. Is he hurt or is he injured? Trying to be all technical about that. He's got a shoulder issue that's keeping him out of OTAs, or at least from fully participating. He hasn't taken a single throw in team drills. He's done some. I saw him on the first day warm up a little bit and make a few throws, but just playing catch basically with one of the trainers or somebody on staff. We have not seen him throw to an actual target, somebody that he's going to be throwing to during the season. And so what is this story? What is the significance of it? Why does the media seem so fixated on a possible injury, let's say, that's 3 months ahead of when it's actually relevant, or when the games start actually happening? And here's my thing about it. I feel like the CJ Stroud shoulder thing is only really a story because of how little is actually happening in terms of the physical demands of OTAs, and the idea that if this was somebody who was healthy or really even close to healthy, there wouldn't be much reason why he wouldn't be able to participate. And I think I talked about this in the previous episode, but it is worth repeating and reiterating. The Texans have a completely new offense, a brand new offense. They've got, and that's because they have a new offensive coordinator. They've got a new offensive line coach who was the assistant offensive line coach before in Cole Popovich, but is now their main offensive line, their head offensive line coach. And then they got all of these new offensive linemen, and even some of the old offensive linemen that they got could be playing some different positions from what they played in the previous season. See Titus Howard, who we've watched move from right tackle to left guard, and now in these OTAs has played quite a bit of right guard. So you got a lot of moving parts, a lot of changes, a lot of newness happening with the team. And then, oh, by the way, part of the change in the offense, and I think that this is key, is CJ Stroud's role in it. Not his importance, because he's the quarterback. He is a very good quarterback. Some might even argue, and I would argue, a great quarterback, a potentially great quarterback. I think he's still got some things to prove and a little ways to go before you can really put great on him. He had a great rookie season and had a really good, overall season last year in terms of just the success of the team. Won 10 games, won a playoff game, and he showed flashes despite not necessarily being as sharp or quite as good. A lot of that had to do with the offensive line and some of the protection issues, and they had injuries with their wide receivers and all of these other things that came up and that happened. But he seems to be well on his way. But the key part about the offense is his role in it and how he's going to operate pre-snap, and all of that, to me, begins to come together at times like this, the limited time that you got together, and OTAs is sort of the time when you expect that to start being really cultivated. And so he's not absent, and he is present. He's locked in, as they like to tell you. They've said that pretty much about everybody. I haven't heard about anybody who's not locked in, right? Everybody who's there is apparently locked in, CJ Stroud included. But I do think that there would be some value in him being able to fully participate. Is it the end of the world? Is it like, something to be overly concerned about? I don't think so. But there should be an appropriate level of, I think, attention paid to the health of the quarterback. Anytime the quarterback, I don't care if the quarterback got a paper cut, okay? If the quarterback is not right, if the quarterback is even kind of injured, and there are questions about the offense, there are questions about the offensive line, there are questions about his weaponry, and I think all of these questions are valid and exist when it comes to the Texans. It does matter if the quarterback is not out there. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to care. That doesn't mean that you got to be caught up in May and June storylines in football. Like, if you just shrug your shoulders at what's going on at this time of year, I can't say that I blame you, because I led this show with the NBA Finals. I'm more into what's happening in the NBA with the Thunder and the Pacers in the finals than I am what's going on with a football team in June. I'm more into what's happening in Major League Baseball, specifically with the Astros, than I am what's happening in OTAs and what's happening with CJ Stroud in June. But I can't, with a good conscience, sit here and pretend like this doesn't matter at all, that this is not a big deal at all. Like, when they say that they're holding him or limiting him or managing his workload as a precaution, when they say that that CJ Stroud has shoulder soreness, the follow-up question and the relevant piece here is, to me, okay, soreness from what? Right? Like, what is he sore from? We had a texter at Sports Radio 610 the other day. I think I was doing the afternoon show. There was somebody that texted in that had I thought a fair point and a fair question. CJ Stroud has been off for about 5 or 6 months. What is he sore from? And look, he's not the only person who has a workout injury. We've seen this before, and I think this is the thing to be concerned about. Joe Mixon's not out there because apparently he's been in a walking boot from an injury that he sustained in an offseason workout, or a fairly recent offseason workout. Christian Harris, who is an even more curious case for the Texans right now, somebody that went from like ascending to like, could this be one of the better linebackers, especially like weak side linebackers that you have in all of football, tasked with spying Lamar Jackson in a playoff game. Now, he didn't do it to a great effect, but he did look the part. You were able to look at him and tell why it is that that's the guy with the sideline ability that he's got, why that's the, athletic linebacker prototype that they would task with spying Lamar Jackson. He comes in the last training camp with a calf injury. Turns out it was a torn calf from what I understand, and then suffers an ankle injury later on after he comes back, and hasn't been the same since. Is not out there, at least, fully participating. I think he is present, but he's working off to the side. And D'Amico Ryans told me just yesterday that, they expect Christian Harris to be ready for training camp. But like we've seen this before, where an off-season injury, an off-season workout has some type of ripple effect on a player's effectiveness and overall availability going forward. So it is too early to be overly concerned about CJ Stroud's availability. But if this is a lingering issue, if this is something that he is like just dealing with, I think it's something that you're going to have to put a pin in and keep in mind throughout the entire season. Now, maybe like I've said this before, they could just kind of go off and be really good, and this just become like a distant memory, and we will probably look silly for making more out of it than what it was. But I think for what the time is now, for where we are right now, this is the story. This is the thing to focus on. And really all we have is what's in front of us. And what's in front of us is the franchise quarterback is not healthy enough to participate in what I consider to be not that strenuous of a workout. It ain't like you can touch the quarterback anyway. It ain't like there is a significant injury risk to the quarterback. Nobody's allowed to touch CJ Stroud's shoulder, whether it hurts or not. Nobody's allowed to take him to the ground, whether he's injured or not. And he's still not quite healthy enough to be out there and doing all of the things that you would expect somebody to be doing when they're learning a new offense, when their offensive line is coming together in a particular way, the way that this one is. And yeah, no, it is mildly concerning and certainly worth talking about. I don't feel like we got to go out of our way to shoot down talking points and storylines in sports. We can prefer ones over others. We can decide like we don't want to really talk about a thing or don't really find it all of that interesting. But I don't see how you could knock someone for saying, hey, the quarterback's not fully healthy. And you know what? That's not okay. Not to blame the quarterback for not being healthy, not to blame the team for how they're managing them. Like you get injured, you get injured. And if your quarterback is injured, this is exactly the way you're supposed to manage him. So credit to the Texans for being somewhat self-aware when it comes to that. But we're not going to act like an injury to the quarterback is nothing. At least I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And you can accuse me of making more out of it than it is. I would just shoot back and say all of this is us making more of it than what it is. That's why we like sports. None of it really matters, right? But it matters to us. We like it. We care about it. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys are sports fans who interact like to a large degree with non-sports fans and like what you observe from them and how they view us. But people who are not into sports don't get us. They don't understand why it is that we care about these games that in the grand scheme of things don't really matter. And like, what is the big deal? What is the big deal about any of it? And I'm fortunate enough to be around, like deeply entrenched in the sports world, but also to be around people who don't give a damn about none of this. They ain't watching no games. They don't know who CJ Stroud is or the significance. None of it is significant. So like I could just shoot back and say, well, what is the meaning of any of it? Like, what is the significance of any of it? Right? It's all it is sports. But we're here for a reason because we care about it. And I feel like if you care about the Texans, if you care about quarterback play, if you care about the future of the league, then you're monitoring any injury of a budding star like CJ Stroud, which is exactly what he is. So I think that he should be treated with that sort of significance or with that type of gravity in mind, like it matters. And I don't feel the need to either overreact or to dismiss this story as absolutely nothing. So I think it matters for learning a new offense, new offensive line, and a new role for CJ Stroud as the sort of the point guard, if you will, the pre-snap, knowing what to do pre-snap and having the answers and things like that he didn't have under Bobby Slowick, and things that a level of control that he wanted in previous years and hasn't gotten, but is going to get in year 3 under Nick Caley. This is their first crack at it. He's not healthy enough to be out there. They're saying that they're not concerned, but I made this point on the radio as well. If they were concerned, would they tell us? Would they say that? Would they say, yeah, man, CJ Stroud's not throwing. He's out there. He's not throwing. And we're really worried about it. No. So don't come at me with, man, well, the team not concerned. D'Amico says it's okay. Nick Caley says everything is all right. What the hell are they supposed to say, man? What are they supposed to say? And then you had on Tuesday when we were out there at OTAs, D'Amico Ryans was asked specifically, and credit to Will Kunkel of Fox 26 for actually asking the question whether CJ Stroud had any kind of procedure in the offseason. Now, my understanding, I didn't ask this question because my understanding is that he didn't, but it was good to just get this on the record. I kind of just heard this through the grapevine, but there wasn't no offseason surgery or procedure from what I understand. Okay. But D'Amico Ryans, I think, for lack of patience with the line of questioning, I think that he didn't necessarily do the narrative or the storyline any favors by not giving a direct answer to a direct question, which was, did he have off-season surgery or a procedure? And he didn't say yes or no. He just said that I'm done answering CJ Stroud questions, and he's sore, and we're not going to rush him back. And when he's ready, he'll be ready. And I should point out that was actually back-to-back questions that were direct. Will he be ready for training camp? Will he be ready for training camp? And did he have a procedure? Neither one of those questions, which were yes, no, direct questions, were answered with yes, no, direct answers. Now, to be clear, D'Amico Ryans does not necessarily owe us those direct answers, but I think it would go a long way in setting the narrative, setting the tone with a definitive yes or no. Yes, he will be ready for training camp. Not, we're not going to rush him. I hope not. I don't think that you would. I don't think you're crazy. I don't think you're stupid. So I hope you're not going to rush him back. But what's the answer to the question? Yes or no? Mind you, asked him about Christian Harris, and he said he should be ready for training camp. Matt Burke last week, the defensive coordinator, said Christian Harris should be ready for training camp. A direct answer. CJ Stroud, he'll be ready when he's ready, and we're not concerned. Not exactly a direct answer. Did he have a procedure? Hey, we're done talking about that. He'll be ready when he's ready. Not a concern. Not a direct answer. So, D'Amico Ryans has done well without my advice. He does not need it. He does not need my advice on anything and at any level. But I would point out that the better play here, especially if the answer is no. Now, if the answer is yes, that complicates things, right? If the answer is yes, he did have a procedure, but we don't really want to tell you all about that. I get that. And that's a different thing. But if the answer was no, which I believe it is, he should have said that. He would have done himself and this whole storyline a lot of favors if he had gone with the solid no, he did not. It's just soreness. We'll see him when he's out there. We're not putting a timeline on it, but we feel good about it, and we'll see him when he's out there. So read into it what you want, or don't read into it what you don't want. But I think that you're kind of kidding yourself if you think that this is not something that media should be at least keeping a really close eye on. That is our job. That is actually what our job 100% is. All right. Quickly on Lance McCullers before I get out of here. I want to touch on this because I think this is important. And I know we just established with the CJ Stroud story that maybe what I consider important and what others consider important are not exactly the same. But nonetheless, it's my podcast. And I guess on my podcast, what I consider important matters most. So sorry. But when it comes to the Lance McCullers Jr. story for the Astros, I think that this is a really not just important, but a fun thing to monitor with Lance McCullers. And we talked quite a bit about this, if you heard me on radio recently, of how quickly, how they say life comes at you fast. This is one of those, how quickly things can change, how quickly a situation can change. Going into the season, I know there's probably some skepticism about whether Lance McCullers would pitch at all because it had been so damn long since he had. And we went through a pretty decent stretch there where we were getting a lot of Lance McCullers updates for somebody that wasn't going to pitch no time soon. and it got exhausting after a while, even to the point to where we were able to make a little bit of a mockery of it. Even if you're like me, at least, you're not one to mock Lance McCullers. Like I respect all of the guys that have contributed to the World Series runs. I'm not disrespecting those guys. They are legends in my mind. And Lance, I think, is Lance is a likable dude, especially if you're on, if you're on his side. Like, to me, that's the type of dude that you want on your team. Maybe you don't like him if he's on the other team, or I don't know, like maybe you can find things to pick apart. But if he's on your side, I feel like he's one of the more likable dudes. But when it comes to his importance and life coming at you fast, think about how you went from, this term that we coined on the drive with Sterner and Hughley, my guys, Clint Sterner and Ron the Show Hughley, where they were calling him Luxury Lance, because you didn't know when he was going to pitch again. And whenever that time did come, you had to just consider it a luxury. Whatever you get from Lance McCullers is just gravy on top of everything, because unfortunately, due to the injury history, you just can't rely on the guy to be out there. And so going into this season, it was like, okay, well, if he is out there, he's like their sixth starter. Maybe even there's a role for him in the bullpen. As reluctant as he is to like even go down that road, Lance has been pretty clear over the years. Look, legitimate starting pitchers do not grow on trees, and I am a legitimate starting pitcher. That's a direct quote from Lance McCullers some years ago, before we had these particular issues with his injuries. And that was, March, April, when we were talking like that. You fast forward to late May, and certainly now in early June, dude goes from being your sixth starter to your third starter. And I'm not talking about the order in the rotation. I'm talking about the quality of pitcher, the quality of player that you have from top to bottom. Of course, there's Framber Valdez and there's Hunter Brown, both of which, at least as of late, are giving you ace-worthy type of stuff. Like ace-worthy type of performances on a fairly consistent basis. Even when they don't necessarily have their best stuff, they're able to work through it, work around it, and give you the type of quality that is similar to an ace. So you got basically two aces at the top of your rotation. And then at the bottom of it, you've lost guys. There is no Spencer Arrighetti with the broken thumb. There is, from playing catch, by the way, or like some kind of freak injury from playing catch out in the outfield, and it sidelines him for months on end with a broken thumb. Freak injury, but it happened. And then for the second year in a row, they have starters go down in relative back-to-back fashion between Hayden Wesneski, who they just acquired the Kyle Tucker trade over the offseason, and Ronel Blanco, who are both now down with Tommy John. And Ronel Blanco is going to have his surgery on Friday. I believe Wesneski would have already had to have had his by now. And it is eerily similar to last year when you had Christian Javier and Luis Garcia go down basically at the same damn time and have Tommy John surgery like in the same week, maybe even like a day apart or something like that. Back-to-back seasons where something like that happens. And so now the back end of your rotation includes some either unproven guys or really bullpen guys that they're having to stretch out as starters, but are actually bullpen guys. And so 2 times through your rotation, you effectively are having bullpen games between Ryan Gusto and Colton Gordon. Those are just not quality starters just yet. Colton Gordon has a chance to actually be something at some point, but right now it's not. That's not what it is. And smack dab in the middle of that is Lance McCullers Jr. Not quite as reliable as Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez at this point because of the injury and because it's been so long since he pitched up until this point, but certainly makes you feel more comfortable on the mound than those other 2 guys that I mentioned, in Gusto and Colton Gordon. So this is life coming at you fast, going from the 6th starter the sixth man in the rotation to now a very key and important part of the rotation as the third guy. And Lance McCullers, man, how about him? How about what he's given you over his last couple of starts? He's talked about this, and it's really cool to watch how he continues to have to evolve and reinvent himself as a pitcher with each new injury and come back from said injury. He had to do it before, and he's now had to do it again. And look, you get last week a 12 strikeout performance, something like 5 ground balls. And even though he gave up a home run or two, he definitely gave up some of the goods, but he gave them a chance to win. Was a quality start, both in terms of the definition of a quality start and just what a quality start's supposed to look like, right? You're mowing dudes down. In each of the 6 innings that he pitched, he had 2 strikeouts in each of the 6 innings that he pitched, or was it, did he go 6? I think maybe he just went 5. Maybe he just went 5 the last time. Whatever it was, dude had 12 strikeouts, okay? And didn't get the win because he gave up the home run, gave up the lead, but the Astros come back and they win the game. And it is in large part because of how he pitched as their starter. Then he doubles back. Of course, that was against the A's. So shout out to the schedule guys. Shout out to the schedule makers in this kind of soft spot in the Astros schedule. I think that helps as well, that you're going up against an A's lineup. And then in this case, last night or Tuesday night, going up against a Pirates offense that is just flat out pitiful. Can't hit the side of a fire station. Can't hit his way out of a paper bag or fight his way out of, can't hit the side of a fire station. Can't do really much of nothing. Like, all they really got going for him right now is probably Paul Skeens, who was also pitching on the other side. And head to head with Paul Skeens, okay? And Lance holds his own. 6 innings, gives up 2 hits, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, no runs. 6 innings of shutout baseball to hand the ball off to the bullpen, who holds it down. Sean Dubin, Brian Abreu, Josh Hader, they do their thing. Astros bullpen, last series against the Tampa Bay Rays notwithstanding, they are I would say the Astros is one of the better bullpens in all of baseball. So they didn't do no favors for their ERA against their bullpen ERA against the Rays. But if you've been following, you've been watching, this bullpen is real. So what you get from your starters matters, because you feel like once you hand the ball off to the bullpen, everything is pretty much gravy. Now, the question is, what are your starters going to give you now that 3 of them are down and you're relying on a dude that ain't pitched in a couple of years to come in there and play much more of a prevalent role? And then this offense is just so average, so underwhelming, right? But it's not like you need 10 runs if you're going to throw 6 shutout innings, get 6 shutout innings from your starter, and your bullpen is going to be one of the better, more reliable ones in baseball. So Lance McCullers is more important and more crucial than I think anybody anticipated him being coming into the season. And it's for some obvious reasons, but it's also now, I think, because of what he's shown you in these more recent starts, right? 6 shutout innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk. And that's coming off of a 12 strikeout performance. Like, Lance McCullers appears to be not back to the old Lance McCullers, but appears to be, quite simply, a new Lance McCullers, a new version of Lance McCullers, who is now still evolving and figuring out what this version of him is supposed to look like and what it's going to look like. It is fun to watch. It is an important piece of the Astros season, and I'm excited about it. Like, I think that Lance McCullers is, a bit of an X factor for the Astros at this point, and that is just something that is really cool to see him out there, not just pitching, but pitching well and pitching at a time when the Astros really, really need it. Like, where was this supposed to come from? And Like, we even got questions now what the trade deadline is supposed to look like. And that's going to be fascinating because we don't anticipate them being sellers. They're atop the division. They've got a chance to do something that they've kind of just been doing now for the past decade, which is running the AL West and making a bid for the ALCS and therefore the World Series. Won the division last year, got swept by the Tigers, who look even better this year now. But the Astros, and I keep saying this, they are among the dozen to 15 teams or so that should have realistic aspirations of a pennant. Okay. And I think this is a cool thing about baseball right now is about half the league should feel that way. And the Astros are one of those teams. They are on the right side of that half. The Pirates, not so much. The A's, not so much. The Colorado Rockies finally won 10 games. Shout out to them. But not so much, right? But the Astros, even if they're not the Astros of yesteryear, I think because they've done enough to tread water and the overall Major League Baseball landscape has enough parity and is of such that the Astros are right there in the mix. They got to feel like they got a shot. So what do they do at the deadline? They could use another arm. They also have their best pitcher who's on an expiring contract, is set to be a free agent at the end of the season, and is not somebody that they're going to pay. They're not going to pay Framber Valdez. All of history indicates that they just don't believe in it for the amount of money that he's going to be up for. It's not happening. You got to figure that if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. They would have signed an extension by now. They know that bill is due, that time is coming, and they have not figured anything out. I've even seen reports that the conversation hasn't even really happened that much. So it's not even like a matter of they can't agree. It seems like the Astros have just accepted that Framber Valdez has priced himself out of their market. So how do they approach this thing? Do they try to get as much as they can for a guy like Framber and cash in on it at the deadline? Or do they go the other way and figure out what kind of combination of prospects they can put together to go get more starting pitching and reinforce their rotation? It is a interesting conundrum that they're in. I suspect that they're going to keep Framber Valdez and just lose him for nothing, and then, try to fortify that rotation, because as important as Lance McCullers is, they need more than that. So maybe those reinforcements come via healed guys, like maybe the Spencer Arrighetti return, maybe Luis Garcia's setbacks from Tommy John surgery are not so bad that they keep him out for even longer than just past July. Same thing with Christian Javier. Maybe some combination of those three guys, hopefully two of the three at least, maybe all three of them come back, and they don't need to go out and get these reinforcements. But you got to figure that part is a priority and that they're going to be active at the trade deadline. And if they are not, one of their saving graces will be that Lance McCullers is part of the rotation and is finally healthy and pitching. So that's my spiel. That's the B Block Podcast, at least for today. I am so excited about the combination of sports, storylines, and things that we got as a spectacle. But it really starts with these NBA finals, these Thunder, these Pacers. Can't wait to watch them. Can't wait to break it down here with you. I appreciate you again for being here on the B Block Podcast with me. Make sure that you are subscribed to the B Block Podcast wherever it is that you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube as well. This is a Foolish Club Media partnership. So shout out to Foolish Club Media and make sure you're following them everywhere that you can find podcasts and also on YouTube as well. And then until next time, y'all be good.
Beast got from Hiram Clark.